Good morning, colleagues. Good morning
Bonjour,
from East
collègues.
Africa as well. I
Membres
want to check
de
that
la
everything is fine. I
communauté
do hear
africaine,
echo
je
of
pense que
the
tout
French
est
interpretation.
va
Is
bien.
that just me or is everybody else?
I think it's everyone.
Can we sort that one out immediately, please? Colleagues, I think we are ready to start. And we are going to start in a rather awkward way today because of the time we have taken to kick off the meeting. And our director, the director for the Bureau for Workers' Activities of the ILO, has an engagement in 10 minutes time from now. She's well prepared for this meeting. So even before I welcome you to this webinar, even before we introduce each other and look at the dignitaries around the meeting today, please allow me to invite Sister Maria Elena Andre, the director of the ILO's Bureau for Workers' Activities, to make her remarks so that we can release her for an urgent appointment she has in about 7 minutes. Maria Elena, please accept our apologies. We will appeal to you to make your remarks at this moment.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, dear colleagues. Good morning, friends. I'm really sorry for this inconvenience, but I really do have to leave you in a short period of time. I think there is still a problem with the English interpretation or the French being listened to. Mohammed, shall I continue?
Okay. Please proceed. We will try to correct that from the background.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, colleagues, again, good morning. I'm very happy to be with you today, and I would like to express my gratitude to General Secretary, Mr. Kazahun Follow of the Horn of Africa Trade Union Confederation, HACTU, and also Mr. Peter Verica, Chairman of the East African Trade Union Confederation, for hosting this event. I'm going to tell you, we have a very impressive agenda in front of us. And I would also like to welcome and thank our distinguished panelists, Professor Jelle Visser, Professor Stephen Akkot, Mrs. Annette Chipelemi, a member of the ILO Governing Body Workers Group, and also Vice President of the 2021 International Labor Conference that will continue again in November and December. I would also like to welcome Mr. Eric Manzi, the Deputy Secretary General of I2C Africa, Mr. Emmanuel Nezunda, Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of African Trade Union Unity, OATU, and our colleagues from the Global Union Federations. I want to name everyone for time, but I would like to thank you very, very much for your participation. And we are very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your experiences on the topic of today, that is trade unions in transition. And I would also like to show gratitude to everyone that is participating at this event for the next 2 days. It is an infinite pleasure for me to open this ACTRAV HACTU sub-regional seminar on trade unions in transition in Eastern Africa. Now, this is a webinar series. That means that after the regional webinars that we organized end of last year in different continents, we are now developing multiple webinars in each of the sub-regions to allow to delve more into particular issues, but also to exchange experiences among countries with comparable realities, building on years of experience of trade union leaders and academics, action on the future of trade unions. So this is the second of its kind, and we will take the lessons from this seminar to the other regions in Africa and also to the rest of the world. Well, colleagues, I think that I don't need to tell you that with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, the world has changed utterly. The health crisis has become a global economic and social crisis, and for millions, a humanitarian crisis. The ongoing pandemic has made it very clear that the world of work is vulnerable to important changes, which dramatically change not only our world of work, but with that, the challenges that trade unions are faced with.
Dans notre monde de travail, a poussé à beaucoup d'autres
During the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, trade unions have been faced with serious challenges, including decreasing membership, but they've also shown a lot of resilience, and that is key. Trade unions are reflecting upon what this crisis means for the next crisis, and with that, trade unions' resilience and adaptive capacity. Last month, the ILO held the first ever virtual International Labour Conference. And this conference resulted in a very strong call from its tripartite constituents for urgent global action to advance a human-centered recovery that is inclusive, sustainable, and resilient.
Notre séminaire qui a été tenu et va étudier sur la recouverte de la reprise.
It calls for inclusive economic growth and job-rich recovery with decent work opportunities while taking advantage of digital and ecological transitions. Calls for addressing the needs of the most vulnerable workers and hardest hit sectors, of strengthening occupational safety and health, including the frontline workers, for universal access to adequate social protection over the life cycle. Moreover, it strongly reaffirms the importance of social dialogue with workers and employers organizations and international labor standards in addressing these challenges. And it is in this context of rapid and multiple changes that ACTRAF commissioned a research on the state of the unions, having a look at trends in membership of unions, at the main challenges that trade unions are faced with, but also the possible ways forward. And I am very much delighted that the author of this research, Professor Jelle Visser, is amongst us today and will present various of the points that I would say are confronting, but equally possible scenarios for the future of unions. Now, the ongoing pandemic raises also important questions that go beyond the COVID-19 crisis. And they touch upon the core of trade unions and their role in the future of work. Let me just tell you three of those. How COVID-19 affects the capacity of trade unions to be partners in the policy responses to COVID-19 and beyond. That means, do unions have a seat around the table on the core issues of the world of work of today and tomorrow? Second point. What are trade unions' capacities to be the voice of all workers? That is also precarious workers, workers in unstable and ambiguous employment relationships, low-wage frontline workers, and workers in the informal economy. And the third one, do people during and after the crisis rely on trade unions to improve their labor and social protection? So this is exactly what this webinar series is about. We want not only to ask the right questions, but also actively support trade unions in addressing key concerns, in building an agenda of transformative change inspired by successful experiences of trade union revitalization. We therefore have structured this seminar around the following thematic blocks. The first one, assessing key transitions and sustainability challenges that trade unions are faced with. And I'm looking forward to the presentation of Professor Stephen Ackott in this regard. The possible scenarios for the future of trade unions that will be developed by Professor Jelle Visser. The exchange of experiences and best practices of trade union revitalization. And I'm also very glad to see that the sectoral unions are participating in this seminar. Trade union responses in times of COVID-19. Focusing not only on how COVID-19 is affecting workers and workers' organizations, but also on successful practices where resilient trade unions are at the forefront of shaping policy responses to COVID-19, of organizing most precarious workers, of servicing frontline workers, or using social media for campaigning. And finally, foresight or scenario thinking to support trade unions in dealing with uncertainty, to anticipate change, to explore possible futures, and to enable transformative action. So, colleagues, we're already a bit late, and we have an impressive agenda this morning, so I will stop here. Without further ado, I welcome you all to the seminar and wish you a very fruitful deliberations. I invite you to talk openly and frankly, and also to tell you that, of course, as ACTRAF, we are here to support you. I thank you very, very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Maria Elena. That's an excellent introduction to our workshop. Excellent remarks as well. We heard you very, very clearly, especially the last bit when our interpretation was fully sorted out. We wish you well for the rest of the day. I know how busy your program is, and I'm sure you are already getting late. So on behalf of the leadership from the Horn of Africa and on behalf of the leadership from the East African region, may you have a nice day, and we hope to see you again very soon. Thank you so much, Maria Elena.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and I wish you all a very nice day as well and very fruitful deliberations.
Many thanks too.
We're going to use a PowerPoint presentation. You might also start organizing with the technicians in the background so that you can beam your presentation. But in the meanwhile, let me also emphasize that since now we are going into a technical session, and because of time constraints at the end of the presentation and after the input of the discussants, we might not all of us have an opportunity to take the floor to ask questions or to comment or to provide our reflections on the issues that are going to be presented and discussed. So the chat room is open for all of us to comment and to post our reflections and insights. The webinar is in 2 languages, so you post your comments on the chat room in any language, and we can be assisted to ensure that these are brought back to the plenary. Those that are not taking the floor, let's also continue to keep our microphones on mute so that we are not disrupted by background noises. Dr. Stephen.
Madam, confirm that
yes.
Stephen Umakotha, I'm ready. Just ask the technician to allow the sharing mode. Then I can start as soon as we can. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, good that you are there and I can see you.
Also, Madam, my name is Thomas Kipkemboi, representing workers in Kenya Plantation and Agriculture Workers Union, and also representing the General Secretary of Kenya Plantation and Agriculture Workers Union.
Yes.
In Kenya.
Thank you. We continue on the chat, please, so that we can give the opportunity to the next presenter, Brother Thomas. Let's hear what you have to say through the chat. Go to the chat room, then we can attend to the issue that you would want to raise. But thank you for introducing yourself. Have you been given the host, Dr. Stephen?
Confirm, yes, sister, I am all set now. When you say I go, I go.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have invited you because on trade unions and how they are operating, the challenges that they are facing internally, externally, and all the information that you have been able to gather through research. And thank you for an extensive presentation that you have shared with us. And let me also assure participants that we will share this presentation through the normal procedures with HACTU and EATUC. We only have 10 minutes, Dr. Stephen. I can be generous to give you at least 12 minutes for you to take us through some of the key transitions and sustainability challenges, and also try to emphasize where these are emanating from, and end up by suggesting some insights on the remedies and the possible way forward. to you, Dr. Steve. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Sister Moderator, and thank you very much, comrades. It's a good morning and a great pleasure. Madam Chair, confirm.
Your slides on the screen.
Thank you. So I've had a big pleasure of being a student of ETUC as a researcher and working with many workers around the region in Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the reflections here are based on those analyses. I wanted to update you to those statistics, and all the countries in East Africa just did their budgets. So the central banks are still putting together their data. So in another 2 weeks, I will update this with statistics and give back to you, where you can see all the trends and so on. But the beginning point, of course, is ILO has always done a good job, and this future of work reflection was very useful, and the 4 themes around which that was based has been discussed. But I want to also emphasize that although we are doing this discussion in the context of, on the moment of COVID-19, we must remember that what we experience now is because we have had significant problematics in the working environment over time. And so COVID-19 moment has sort of accelerated them, has become a catalyst, has made them more visible. And if you look at our work and the report on future of work, that was well engaged. And ultimately, therefore, looking ahead, what we want to see ultimately as a way of getting out of the current situation is a more worker-centered, inclusive and sustainable, resilient framework of action and policy. That is really what we want to look at, want to see in the years ahead. So I will systematically use the 10 minutes now. I will use 7 minutes to just give an indication of what are the transition questions that we are talking about. So the first one, this image is very common to all of us. This can be Rwanda, this can be Kampala, this can be Nairobi. And the shift from industrialization model to service characterized sector, where we have street vendors, we have the small scale enterprises and the border and so on. And this is a transition that the trade unions must therefore take into account. We are no longer having everybody in the factory. The shop floor is fluid, the shop floor is in the street. The second area of transition that we have seen over the years is a movement from analog to digital economy. If you look at Kenya, if you look at Uganda, if you look at Rwanda, M-Pesa has become a real big thing. There's a return also of online business, especially for younger generation and also for older generation. And that's a transition that also shifts the way we conceptualize, organize, and see our membership as unions. There has also been the environmental transition. In Kenya, we have the ban of plastic bags. In Tanzania, you see the Taka Nipato movement, where young people and also now old people are workers in the waste management sector. But we haven't done good organizing in the waste management sector the way we see, for example, in Latin America and in India, where the waste management has become a big labor and worker sector. So that's a transition issue that we need to take into account. Other transitional issues are the intangible employer. Take, for example, the Uber. Uber has become a major employer in the East African region. And the employer here is not tangible. And there are many other online services. So the unions are being invited, therefore, to engage with these new spaces. There is also the increase of the number of youth employees in non-traditional sectors, for example, construction sector, and in the informal economy. We have a huge informal economy. This is, for example, a SNAP, which is taken from Tanzania, and there's a huge number of people who the statistics that we have show us, for example, that workers in huge number of informal economy workers in Rwanda, in Uganda, in Tanzania, and significantly new job creations in Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and increasingly also now Ethiopia are not in the formal economy, but in the informal economy. Yet, if you look at the latest statistics from ILO and also from ITUC, the number of workers being organized, being recruited from this economy is not as significant as the growth in the area. And with the COVID moment, the informal economy is likely to grow more and more because the large-scale investment has had to reduce to little bundles of work. The construction sector is another sector that is another big transition. If you look at Rwanda, if you look at Uganda, if you look at Ethiopia, if you look at Kenya, there's a huge reliance of mega infrastructure as the new spine for the economies. And this has led to new actors being part of the social dialogue. We have international financing institutions like the World Bank, African Development Bank, who are critical actors now in funding these big projects, and therefore we cannot do collective bargain without thinking about them, without having them in the house. So the emergence of this construction sector is a big construction.
C'est le vrai. Donc, dans la construction,
side by side with
on a des investissements très gigantesques. C'est la Banque mondiale, la FMI, qui est de financer. Et ces institutions n'ont pas été engagées. D'autres exemples, les effets du COVID-19,
especially for casual workers, seasonal workers,
and
the absence of social security has made the situation even more grave. And so moving ahead, in the years ahead, this is a
de la protection sociale.
Problem. I don't know whether it's only my side. I hear the interference from the French interpretation.
I can hear it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Technicians try to assist.
S'il vous plaît, est-ce que le technicien, priez-vous? Can you please add me as an interpreter? Assign me as an interpreter.
Okay.
Okay.
So as they do that, what I want to...
Steve is working on it in Violante.
Okay.
No problem. I'll go on. So what I want to emphasize here is the
ce que j'aimerais donc dire, c'est le caractère
crisis. It presents itself as a health issue, but it is an economic issue, it's a political issue, it's a social issue. We have to engage COVID-19 as a multidimensional phenomenon, not just a health phenomenon. And then, of course, we have the issue of them working from home, the assumption that we have homes, or all jobs can be done at home. So how can you sell your potatoes? How can you sell your stuff at home? You know. Then there's the issue of the social interactions, which are key ingredients to organizing. And we have to have a mechanism that enables us to do organizing through telephony. We have to have a mechanism that helps us to have social dialogue through online and so on. And finally, the issue that I mentioned of international finance, capital coming from the international finance institutions, especially in the construction sector. Then you have the issue of collective bargaining. As I've said, the collective bargaining now requires more evidence. We have to go to the table with statistics. We have to go to the table with the trends, so that beyond our numbers, the intellectual energy is being required more. Let me now move to the question of, I've discussed the question of the sources of these challenges. In East Africa, I've picked out a couple of sources of these challenges. One is the slow pace of political integration. The workers are moving, they're engaging, they're working without boundaries, but the political process is slow. So ITUC and the other workers' movement will have to play a big role in putting their voice to talk with the political leadership to really move towards political integration, which will allow us, therefore, to have balanced legal regime, balanced labor and workplace management frameworks that can enhance workers' protection and workers' organizing across the border. We also have inadequate support for the shift from the informal, from formal to informal economies. We have to really appreciate and agree that the informal economy is a spine of our time, so that our collective bargaining and our labor regulations are not based on the formal logic. At the moment, the labor laws in all the countries in Eastern Africa are based on a formal logic, while the practice of work is in the informal logic. We also need to respond to the current moment, not only as a crisis of health, but as a crisis of neoliberalism. What we're seeing is not a health crisis only, it's a neoliberalism crisis. And therefore, we as the workers need to continue organizing more, need to continue confronting this as a problem of capitalism, not just as a problem of a virus. There is also the issue we need to engage that many of the state politicians and the state employees are now employers. And this is making it very difficult for us to do social dialogue. And we as unions must engage with this question. When you go to a room now, instead of having government and the employer and the worker separately, the government is also the employer, even when it is not public service, because many government workers, especially senior level government workers, are all in this moment where the boundary has become erased. Then there's the issue of trade agreement, especially in East Africa now, with the UK after leaving European Union. They are really overzealous with the economic partnership agreement, which wants to create an equal environment between, economic trading environment between African countries like Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Rwanda, and the United Kingdom. This will really be dangerous for the workers. So we have to see how to engage this within the negotiations of trade agreement, because economic partnership agreement is very bad for the workers, and this is a source of this challenge. And finally, we have the decline in our membership, and we have to really have a big campaign now in recruiting more people. Finally, let me talk about some few remedies. I think we have to accelerate the recruitment and organize workers in the informal economy, including refugees. We have a lot of refugees in Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania, and we leave them outside our economy. We as the trade unions must be interested in having refugees as part of our economy and recruit them to be members of our union. Expand and deepen social dialogue, talks about that. Enhance collaboration between our trade unions and other social security organizations that workers belong to, like cooperatives, like workers' associations, especially if we are to organize workers in the informal economy. We, the trade unions, must now create collaborations between ourselves and the workers in those other associations, because then they can. We have also to strengthen our ability of trade unions to do more research and bring evidence when we're doing collective bargaining. And then, of course, strengthen confederation such as ITU. Members, these are the reflections which I've summarized based on our work of many years. And I think, as you can see, they reflect the transitional questions and some of the sources of those questions and the possible remedies. And I hope this will activate our conversations today and the days ahead. Thank you very much, sister. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen. You are also very specific on the issues that you have raised, and you also kept to time. My takeaway point from your presentation was that we need a worker-centered, inclusive, sustainable, and resilient approach to come out of some of the challenges that you have raised. We are still doing very, very well on time. I don't see anything yet in terms of comments or questions in the chat room. Dr. Stephen, you can also go through the chat room so that if there are any comments, questions that would require your reflection, you can address this towards the end of the session. Let me turn over the microphone to invite our two discussants. We have listened to the key transition for trade unions in East Africa and the Horn of Africa. Madam Aneta Chipeleme, in your capacity as a board member, particularly when you were listening to some of the challenges faced by trade unions as they were being discussed at the first discussion in the ILC, what would you say are some of the global challenges that are faced by trade unions? Can you, in 7 minutes, elaborate some of these challenges?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Let me start by greeting the participants. Good morning from Lusaka, Zambia, dear colleagues in the Eastern and Horn of Africa. I'm very happy to join you at this very important meeting and to wish you success as you discuss ways and means of reactivating the role of trade unions in the region. On behalf of my fellow worker members of the ILO governing body, and indeed in my capacity as the reigning Vice President of the 109th session of the International Labour Conference Instant, I'm honored to share some of the ideas on this very important topic. From the outset, I wish to join those who spoke before me in recognizing the senior trade union leaders from East Africa and the Horn of Africa. These include Brother Kasahun Folo of Haktu and Brother Werike of Ituk. And also, I recognize the presence of the Director of ACTRAV, together with all the senior specialists here on the platform. In my role as a discussant, first of all, let me thank Dr. Stephen Akoth, our resource person, for his insights on the topic, assessing key transition in sustainability challenges for trade unions in Eastern Africa. I wish to bring to the fore 2 issues or 2 questions. Number 1, how and to what extent should trade unions transform their organizations, governance, and operations to better service their members now and in the context of the future of work? Number 2, how can trade unions reverse the trend of falling unionization, now accelerated by COVID-19, and be able to attract and retain new groups of workers who are largely in non-standard forms of employment? With respect to the first question, we need to recall that so much work has already been done. It has been carried out to respond to the changing world of work. Here, one needs to refer to the report of the ILO Global Commission on the Future of Work of 2019 and the ILO Centenary Declaration of the Future of Work adopted by the International Labour Conference of June 2019 and also endorsed by the United Nations General Assembly of September 2019. These reports, dear colleagues, remind us of the focal role of institutions of work. Strong institutions of work are fundamentally essential for the effective responses to this crisis that the world of work is currently confronted with. The reports also bring to the fore the need for both workers and employers' organizations to strengthen their representative legitimacy. Within the context of transitions, workers' organizations must reach out to the most vulnerable workers, such as workers in the rural informal economy. And this is echoed by the presenter, Dr. Akoth, and platform workers through innovative organizing techniques, including the use of the digital technology. Of course, my second question will be adequately addressed by subsequent sessions, especially the presentation of the ILO ACTRA working paper entitled Trade Unions in the Balance. Suffice to say that I am confident with the diversity of trade union organizations represented in this webinar, including the involvement of our continental institutions, ITUC Africa and OWATU, as well as the global union federations. No doubt you have the capacity to address the need for trade unions to assess their organizing and advocacy strategies. I would like to end by reiterating that Workers Group of the ILO governing body remains committed to staying connected with the labor movement around the globe. Greater solidarity is needed now more than ever, which is the basis for us to build forward better. I wish you fruitful deliberations, and I thank you for the opportunity.
We really appreciate your inputs, global inputs, Madam Annette Chipemele. The two questions that you ask, what services or trade unions providing to their members, particularly to new groups. And you also echo the same issues that have been raised by our main presenter for this session, the role of organizing, inclusive organizing, so that we don't leave anyone behind. Again, thank you for recalling some of the ILO framework documents that are also pointing us to the solutions that will get us into revitalizing our organizations. The Centenary Declaration that also talks about strong institutions of work. Trade unions are also a key pillar, a strong institution of work among the tripartite with governments and employer organizations. Let me turn the microphone and invite Dr. Francis Atoli, who is also an eminent governing body member of the ILO, to give us a regional perspective. I have seen that Brother Barasa is logged on, and I'm sure you have organized for Dr. Atoli's participation. You have 7 minutes. No perspective. Brother Barasa.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If you are getting me, that
yes.
is fine. I will be very, very brief. First of all, I want to recognize our senior sister Maria Elena from the ACTRAF, Sister Gala, and the rest of my go present. Let me take this opportunity first and foremost to thank you very much and to thank the organizers of this very important subject on appreciating the journey that we have so far traveled, and also realizing that trade union transition, resilience and revitalization is the key norm for now and in future. Brothers and sisters, I want to take you a little bit back, as I've been a representative of workers in this region, and where we have come from and the journey that we have all traveled. And when we talk session, we should start by appreciating the long journey that trade unions globally have traveled, all endured in fight for social justice amid hostilities from a section of both employers and governments, and indeed other players, even people who are supposed to be our partners in social justice from civil societies. Sometimes they turn their guns against us. And we have been able to survive. We have been able to remain relevant, and we have been able to continue with the struggle of representing the lowly placed workers. Just a few years back, our usual fiscal trade union meetings in Geneva and elsewhere were all dominated by male gender. My happiness today is that I must, as I walk as a proud man from a proud family, where for the first time in the history of the international labor movement and trade unions, we have the chairperson of the governing body being a woman, the workers and employers chairpersons being women, the ITUs in Brussels, and very vocal, one of the active labor leaders we are led by a woman, in addition to our own ACTRAF, where Sister Maria Elena represents us, besides the good work also being carried out by Sister Raquel as our group. Chair, I think you are getting me.
Yes.
Our own region cannot be left behind, having been the first regional organization to have a woman as executive secretary in Africa and in pursuit of workers' rights in this region. When I took over the leadership as a chair of the East African Trade Union Confederation in 2005, the organization was very down, was lowly placed organization among other representative trade union organizations that are very representative. But we managed to put some structures in place and build a very strong sub-regional organization until I handed over the mantle of leadership after 15 years to Brother Mans in 2018. And it remains one of the best well-managed trade union organization under Executive Secretary Sister Karum Gala. And also, I appreciate the chairmanship of Honorable Peter Werige, who is now a member of parliament in the Republic of Uganda. Listening carefully to Maria Elena's keynote speech and the rest of presentations given on the status on union in Eastern Africa, I would like to reflect on only three important issues. Firstly, the resilience of trade union movement in itself forms a foundation for revitalization and pulling us through this transition period. I must say this is a very fascinating period, because even are struggling to survive amid our seen revenue losses, more so on the African continent. They remain resilient, they remain determined to represent workers, and I want to thank them. The second issue has been the strengthened role of social dialogue, and this has been a key pillar and a key direction that we have always been reminded by the International Labour Organization, that ours is always to promote social dialogue. Without social dialogue, there will be a strife. With a strife, there will be no anything that can be done from either or any of our social partners. And for us to be able to spur economic growth in our various areas and nations, so that after realization of growth of any given economy, then there will be expanded opportunities of creating employment for our young men and women. And this calls upon us to remain vibrant, to remain alert, to remain fighting for those issues that can labor movement, putting that in mind. we are very, very much worried as per how we will reignite labor movement, the higher levels where we were after this worst pandemic, COVID-19. As I'm talking to you right now, our organization's deputy secretary general, my own deputy, Brother Benson Okwaro, lost his dear wife, of whom we are burying on 7th of August, on COVID-19, including one of the assistants to his wife at home in rural area in western part of Kenya. This pandemic is real. It has affected workers more than any other section of the human being. Workers are people who depend on wages. Workers are people who depend on casual employment, contractual employment, peaceful employment, sometimes seasonal employment, and sometimes they go without working. Decreased our exports and imports. Today, you want something strategic, including medicines. It will not be easy for you to access simply of lockdowns in various, both local and international nations that do manufacturing. This has stopped people meeting and putting strategies in place as per how they can grow their various economies and make the government survive. This is simply because of this pandemic. I would like to raise this issue of financial sustainability of trade unions immediately after this pandemic, that unless we are financially stable, revitalization and building back strong unions from this pandemic will be a pipeline dream for all trade unions globally and more so on the continent of Africa where I come from. Go to Kenya together with our 45 affiliates. We were able to hold our congresses successfully during this challenging period. I want to take this opportunity to thank colleagues in Kenya, to thank colleagues and globally for the fraternal messages that we received immediately after our Congress. I would urge colleagues both locally and internationally to look for ways and means of collectively engaging both friendly and like-minded institutions to assist trade unions, particularly in the area of organizing, so as to rebuild the lost membership due to the pandemic. We need also to engage the International Labour Organization with maximum support to ACTRAF and its leadership under Sister Maria Elena, so as to embolden our position and our resolution to move closer to workers than the other two social partners that we deal with. The two social partners, particularly the employers, would be very happy when the unions disintegrate under whatever circumstances. But our visibility, supported by the International Labour Organization through ACTRAF and other friendly organizations, will make us remain resilient, will make us remain viable, will make us remain visible, and will make us remain militant as part of our background in trade unionism leadership. I want once again to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this very important meeting, particularly during this hardest hit time in this era of the pandemic, simply because as workers, when our salaries have been slashed to a half, particularly in this country, continue fighting to make sure that salaries are restored full. when other employers cannot be able to appreciate and recognize the need of renewing and reviewing our collective bargaining agreements, particularly this trying time when governments can touch on anything that hurts workers, like perpetual increases on essential commodities, prices on essential commodities, prices on food becoming unaffordable to working men and women in this country. Therefore, we need more support from those friendly organizations more than ever before. That is why I've appealed to the International Labour Organization through ACTRAF. I've also appealed to other friendly organizations and like-minded institutions to make sure that after this pandemic, we will require mammoth support for us to rebuild what we have lost during this trying moment. I want once again, Chair, to take this opportunity to thank you for having accorded me with all this time to reflect on what we have seen, to reflect on where we are coming from, and to reflect to where we are going. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Francis Atoli. And before I summarize some of the key issues that you have raised with a lot of passion, allow me on behalf of the participants of the virtual seminar to extend our heartfelt condolences to Kotu and to Brother Benson's family on the demise that they have faced in the family, including most of our colleagues that have succumbed to this pandemic. You speak as somebody who has been around the trade union movement for a long time. You also underline the fact that some of these challenges have been with us even before COVID, but COVID has actually aggravated the issues that we are confronted with. You underline the fact that the key phrases that define the new normal for trade unions in transitions are words like revitalization and resilience. You are underlining the fact that some of the transitions we already see ourselves achieving or registering positive results. The transitions in the form of seeing more women leading trade unions organizations at global levels, including at regional level. You highlighted the leadership that we have at the helm of the ITUC, at the helm of ACTRAF in Africa, including in the Global Union Federation. You also echo the same sentiments about the role of social dialogue as a key pillar, a key tool that will facilitate the revitalization, the transitions that we are talking about. Importance of financial sustainability so that it can revitalize our organizations is also something key that you raised, that without financial sustainability, trade union revitalization will always be a pipe dream. We still have 5 minutes before the end of this session, acknowledging that we started a bit late. But let me thank the discussions. They've raised the key issues that are important for our discussion for today and over the next 3 days. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I would like to invite 3 participants that can take the floor and ask a question or make a comment or give a reflection only in 1 minute. Don't make another presentation because we have other presentations that are coming. So I'm checking my screen whether there are any 3 participants that would want to take the floor. The technicians will also assist me because I don't see all the names on my screen. Do we have any show of hands of participants that would want to take the floor, 1 minute each, to reflect on the presentation by Dr. Stephen, on the global perspective by Sister Annette, and the regional perspective by Dr. Francis Atoli. Do we have any requests?
In Violeta, we have Obed Albert from Kotu, Abraham Bereket from NCEW, and Leandro.
Okay, so thank you, Caroline. In that order, so we have Obed, you take your 1 minute, be very specific, followed by Abraham, and the last speaker, I didn't get their name.
Leandro.
Leandro, thank you. Obed, you have the floor. Unmute your microphone.
Thank you, the organizers. I'm happy. This is Herbert Jero from Kenya, Kotu, Kenya. I'm hoping everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to echo the sentiments of the earlier speakers and say it is important that we, as the workers worldwide and more into East Africa, we need to renovate ourselves with the skills of what is happening more over after a pandemic crisis which we are encountering right now. Our solidarity will remain very, very important, and our scaling up in terms of organizing and recruitment must be the forefront in terms of what we are supposed to be doing and representing the vulnerable workers across the East Africa. The changing of working system should be able to be adaptable to what we are working on, and I'm calling upon all the trade union representatives to scale up their games and our games so that we can be able to look at the future well united than before. Thank you. Be blessed.
Thank you, Abraham. Abraham, take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to provide a simple, basic opinion on the discussion questions forwarded by Sister Annette. She mentioned it, she forwarded the discussion question on how trade union can address or respond to failing membership rates. So I think the answer to this question is a very simple one. I think if one trade union wants to increase its membership rate, I think the first thing that the specific trade union membership is failing. Then to reverse the issue, that specific trade union has also, as to my opinion, has to also to get back to the basics of its creation. From my perspective, the basics for a trade union can be to fight with its full power for the workers' right, to fight for workers' health and safety, and also to fight to build for building capacity of workers and so on. Then with this basic activity and its reason of creation, once that specific trade union starts to work these basics, then I believe that the workers will come. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Abraham, for reflecting on the questions asked by Madame Chipeleme. Leandri, 1 minute. Leandri, the floor is yours.
Ok, merci et merci de m'accorder la parole. Et dans la présentation de Steve, il a parlé de la lenteur d'intégration politique dans l'EAC, mais aussi dans les remèdes, il a parlé de la consolidation, du moins du renforcement de l'East Africa Trade Union Confederation. Je voudrais savoir s'il y aurait eu une réflexion sur le rapport entre les deux tendances, c'est-à-dire le rapport entre la consolidation de l'East Africa Trade Union Confederation et la lenteur de l'intégration politique dans l'EAC, parce qu'on a l'impression que les syndicats suivent le mouvement au lieu aussi d'être proactifs, c'est-à-dire d'être en avant, c'est-à-dire les politiciens, est-ce que le rapport entre les syndicalistes et les politiciens dans l'intégration au niveau de l'IAC, comment ça se passe pour le moment, c'est ça? S'il y a eu une réflexion sur cela, je vous remercie.
Thank you very much for those interventions from the floor. Before I bring the session to a close, may I invite again Dr. Stephen Akoth. Do you have a key message as we end this session in 2 minutes, having listened to the discussions and the questions that came from the floor? Dr. Stephen Akoth, the floor is yours. Are you still with us?
I see he's logged out.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Disconnected.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues, for this first part, which has been very important and relevant in terms of the remarks that have been given by our three speakers. All of them were highlighting the importance of this discussion that we are having today and over the next 3 days. We need to reflect on the challenges, but we also need to look at what are the possibilities and the prospects for revitalization and for renewal. I thank the speakers for the opening remarks. I also want to emphasize some of the points that have been raised by Dr. Stephen Akoth, which have also been echoed by our discussants: the importance of social dialogue, the importance of organizing, inclusive organizing that leaves no one behind, the importance of also thinking about financial sustainability, including the 2 questions that have been raised by Sister Chipemele. Those 2 questions already Abraham has reflected on some of the questions, but we will carry them along as we go into the other sessions that we still have on our agenda. As your moderator for this session, I want to thank you. We are still increasing in numbers, and I think by the end of the session, we have many more participants joining. We will have another session that is going to be moderated by my brother Kabu. But before that, let me check Caroline, Mohammed, and the other colleagues whether we can take a 5-minute break. But participants do not need to log off and leave the platform or the link so that it will be easy to rejoin after 5 minutes. Is that okay to break for 5 minutes? Then we can continue at 1:45.
Yes, we can break, but don't log off.
Yes, let's take a break.
You can get water, toilet, or anything. Then you come back in 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you for your participation in this session.
Or you can talk to each other also. I know most of you have not heard from many people. You can chat, you can talk. So you can unmute your and talk to someone.
Okay, Brother Cap, 5 minutes over to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, brother.
Yes, and I hope we are all back after
yes, I'm here.
5 minutes break.
Yes, we are back.
Good morning, brothers and sisters.
Morning to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you very warm
morning.
A warm welcome to all of you. And to kickstart the next session, which deals with the topic 4 scenarios for the future of trade unions. My name is Ban Kabu. I'm the ACTRA specialist for Eastern Africa, and I'm also the moderator for this session. And by extension to Gala, Executive Secretary of ITUC, and Brother Kasahunfulu, General Secretary of HAC2, I'm the co-host for this 3-day seminar. The topic, the 4 possible scenarios for trade unions, is going to be presented by Professor Jelle Visser. He is lecturer at the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands and of the University of Bremen's Award for Outstanding Doctoral Supervision. In his tour in terms of research that relates to the issues that we are reflecting on today. In the recent past, he undertook a comparative research on trade unions and trade union renewal, based on which he has been the author of the ILO ACTRA working paper on trade unions in the balance, which is the main focus of our discussions over the next 3 days. Professor Visser's presentation will be followed by a discussion by 2 discussants. We have Sister Caroline Mugala as one of the discussants, and also Professor Trawel Kalukusa, who will also discuss the presentation. And thereafter, we'll open up for questions, comments, and clarifications. But looking at the broad nature of this topic, I would like to crave the indulgence of Professor Visser to limit himself to 3 important questions. 1, what are the possible 4 scenarios that we are talking about for the future of trade unions? What is or are the basis of these 4 scenarios?
what is the best fit out of these 4 scenarios for trade unions in Eastern Africa? Without much ado, I would like to invite Professor Visa to take the floor. I'm having some technical challenges by virtue of the fact that my battery is getting, my charging in my phone battery is getting. In the event of any extreme situation, my colleagues, I invite them to join in case of any extreme difficulties. Professor Weiser, you have the floor. Thank you very much. Hello? Hello?
I'm sure he's trying to join in.
Okay, okay. Professor?
Rafael Pirus, do you see Professor Yele? I don't see him on my screen. Rafael Pirus.
Okay.
Rafael is not in Violeta.
Okay. Let me check again. Because I don't see him unless he has logged with another device.
Can you see the names?
Yeah, I see all the names now.
I'm just using my...
I see this name, ISMM-PhD. I don't know whether
on the line.
It's him or somebody else. Let me check with Rafael.
He's joining in now. He's joining in now.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe it's a problem with the internet connection. But I can see he's trying to join.
Okay, yes, he's trying to join. Give me a minute. Meanwhile, there are a lot of comments, maybe issues being raised by participants listening in French. Interpreters, just look at those comments and see whether we need to adjust anything.
Has he joined us now? Professor?
He's gone.
Have you joined us now?
We don't see him anymore. Okay, let's. Okay.
Has he joined?
Yeah, Rafael Pius is trying to coordinate with him.
So what do we do? In Violeta, Violeta.
Just 2 minutes, Babu. Rafael Pius is trying to link up with him.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Has he joined us now?
Not yet, not yet.
Yeah, I mean,
while we are waiting, I see 2 of our directors have joined. I see Director Chibebe. I also saw Director Musindo. Maybe they
they were recognized from the beginning by Dr. Mohammed when he was making his opening. I think they have been with us since the beginning.
Yes, but they can say a few words so that we don't have this silence while we are trying to get Professor Yele.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to go into his topic. We want to wait for him. Otherwise, we could have started the topic on our own. Yes.
Perfect. Let's see. We get Professor Yele Visa.
What is Rafael Pius saying?
Nothing, no update at the moment. I'm sure he's still talking to Yele Visa to find out what his challenge is. Because I don't think it's about the link. He tried to get in a few minutes ago. It could be his connection, depending on whether he's trying to join us from.
We are extremely sorry for this inconvenience. I mean, everything was fully planned, and we have just encountered this problem. Probably there is a technical hitch on his side.
Yeah, he's trying to join now.
And, okay.
Informed.
As soon as he joins, let me know.
Okay, we are also checking screens. Yet.
We haven't received his request yet.
Yeah.
Let it not be like the same problem I was faced with, wherein they had to send the link because the passcode was refusing in the first place, not until when Yazidi sent me the link before I could join
he tried to join in before. We could see him trying to connect. So it should be a problem with the internet or something. He's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Professor.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Dr. Yele, you with morning, welcome.
Good morning. There was a confusion about the time, I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, it's always like that because we are.
Yeah. I'm happy.
Distance apart.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
Extremely happy to have you. I have already introduced you, but
great.
The fact that you are now with us, let me make a introduction, the lecturer, City of Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that you are a recipient of the University of Bremen's Award for Outstanding Doctoral Supervision.
Okay.
And I've also explained
Your internet is horrible.
In the field trade unions and trade union renewals because of the low battery. So make a presentation for us on the topic, the 4 possible scenarios for trade unions. And this is quite a broad topic. We want to limit you by kindly asking you to limit yourself to 3 important questions. 1, what are the 4 scenarios for, and then 2, what are possible scenarios, and 3, out of these 4 possible scenarios, what is the best fit for trade unions in East Africa? We know you have done the global research, and you are also the author of the ACTRAV working paper on trade unions in the balance, which is the main focus of our meeting over the next 3 days. So I want to hand over the floor to you for you to make your intervention, limiting yourself within the period of 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
I hope that I got it all right, also the 3 questions. I'm very pleased to be part of this meeting, and I'm very pleased for you having this discussion. As you know, I made a study for ACTRAV against the background of the future of work discussion. That is to say, how can we increase the relevance and the presence of trade unions throughout the world in light of what is the future in terms of digitalization, in terms of a growing service sector, but also in terms of how can we get a grip on informal economy, informal work. And with the COVID crisis, of course, this has increased in relevance in the sense that how can we provide adequate services and protect the workers that are involved in these services. So I will sketch you these 4 scenarios. And right away, I will say these are different scenarios, of course. But they are, of course, somehow placed against the background of a worldwide decline in trade unions. This is most particularly the case in Western societies, in developed countries. But also we see in Africa, generally throughout Africa, shifts from once trade unions that were very much present in the public sector, which is a limited sector, but both affecting, of course, teaching and health services, state activities, but sometimes also industry. And this has changed in the sense that privatization, globalization, other forces have limited this sector. And this, of course, has also had a huge impact on trade unions. When I study more particularly countries in East Africa, we look at Tanzania or Kenya or Uganda. We see in each of these countries attempts by the trade unions to get a grip on the informal sector with more or less success, and I think this is the crucial issue now. Now I will concentrate so this is some data for Africa that is from the ILO basically, and we see that they're not. I do not have all the data, but we see particularly in East Africa that trade unions are relative in a difficult position. Okay, you find Tanzania somewhere in the middle, but if you look at Burundi or at Uganda, it is much lower, and also in Kenya, unfortunately. So, but I will go to the scenarios. I see 4 scenarios that I've sketched. One is that the unions are or become increasingly in a marginal position, meaning that they will not be a very important force in shaping our societies and in affecting the conditions under which we live. The second scenario is dualization, perhaps important in some areas, say the public sector, or among very skilled workers, or among teachers, but in the rest of society they are less and less important, and there is even a sort of tension between there where unions are strong and then large parts where they are missing. Third scenario is the substitution scenario, where other social actors, it could be cooperatives or NGOs, or it could be the state even, take over the role of trade unions. They address needs of workers, but the unions are not so important anymore. And the final one is revitalization. So unions are successful. They find methods to address new organizing needs, particularly with regard to the young people and the women, but also in informal sector of the economy and towards migrants. So let me go quickly through these 4 scenarios. And at the end, I will also come to a conclusion. So marginalization I see as a continuation of a current trend of decline. This means you have less members, or at least less resources, less payment. This means also you have less influence and relevance, and your actions are less legitimate because people think, okay, this is a minority. And this process goes on, in particular because of fewer and fewer young people are a member. Now, this issue with young people, I don't know particularly for Africa, because Africa is a young society. And when you study Europe or America, you see that these are older societies in the sense that there are fewer births and more older people. And we see that trade unions in these countries become aged institutions. Young people do not join in the same way as they did, say, 20 to 30 years ago. So this, you see that young people do not recognize themselves very much in the trade union movement. And this is a big problem, because if this goes on, then you will find a trade union movement that is based on old people and represents the interests of old people. And this is for trade unions very dangerous, not only because of fewer members, but also in terms of the image of trade unions. Another issue, I would say, a threat is coming from outside, that is technology. So robots replacing good jobs in industry, but maybe also in agriculture or in services. Or digitalization, in the sense that more and more jobs are now run by through internet websites and based on self-employment, your informal sector. And this is for unions very difficult to organize, because there is no employer, no employment relationship. And so how do you negotiate good contracts and so on? So this is the marginalization thing that if you do nothing, this is where you are likely going to be. Second one is dualization. As I said, this is you organize some workers in some situations, like in the public sector, or in larger firms, or in international firms, or those that have permanent and jobs with high skills. Now, this problem is dualization, that if you at the same time ignore weaker groups, in the past these were women, or today you talk about migrants or temporary workers, or often also young workers without positions, then you are on a losing track, in the sense that these strong positions become smaller. It's like you are organizing icebergs in a melting sea, and they're becoming smaller and more detached. And it is a strategy that is maybe working in the short term, defensive, but in the long term, it will not gain you, because more and more people get into positions where they are in uncertain protection and so on. So, and this strategy is particularly defensive, because it is often done by groups without a broader umbrella organization that reaches out to other groups. So dualism, and in its worst case, of course, is that you defend good positions by offloading the risks to other groups, and to say, okay, we defend the public sector, but all the problems we do through privatization to groups that are in a less good position. So I think this dualism strategy is not a good strategy, and is self-defeating. But of course, we have to realize that for workers to invest in organizing new groups, in the short term, this is always a costly strategy. It costs money. It costs money for recruitment, for trade union officers to organize, and so on. Then I come to the third strategy. Okay, we know from research that out there in society, there is still a great need for something like trade unions. There is a need for social security, for protection, health protection, social insurance, but also for good wages, and also people like to be asked and participate. But, and that's a good thing, I mean, that we know this. We know also that even if young people organize less, they still express the same kind of needs and the same kind of desires. However, the trade union is often seen as inadequate, run by old people, not relevant for them or for crisis situations. And sometimes they see the trade unions only as relevant for a minority of workers. And in this situation, which is a kind of vacuum, emptiness, there are other groups, other providers that step in the gap, so to speak, with specialized offers. And this could be lawyers, minority unions, website groups, cooperatives, government agencies, you name it. And here the issue for trade unions is, must we compete with them, or can we cooperate? Are there among these other providers, for instance, NGOs or some government agencies with whom we can cooperate, or websites? And can we use this new experience to renew our organization? The same goes for new types of membership. So the old type of membership is you become member and maybe you stay member for most of your life. But this kind of membership perhaps is not anymore so appealing for young people. Maybe you want more based on social media or networks, maybe another model than the membership for life model. In this sense, I call on trade unions to think about experiments. And the same goes finally for maybe we could establish in some areas vouchers or voting rights for people, even if they're not member, but in which they can participate in the activities of trade unions and then maybe over time also contribute in terms of money. Then I come to the final one, that is revitalization. For me, the core of revitalization is that it begins with trade unions directing their activities towards the younger generation, towards the younger people. Again, this is very relevant for Asia, Japan, for instance, or for North America, or for Europe. So I'm less sure how relevant or how important this is for Africa. I guess it is also, but Africa is, of course, a much younger society. But anyway, it is enough young people in their ranks, also in their leadership, but also in the approach, that they learn from the ways young people do their activities. So this would be, for me, the first thing from revitalization. The second one is, revitalization always is a combination of three methods. One is from below, organizing, simply listening to people, what are their issues, and try to organize it on that basis. The second one is look for political, institutional support. This can be through coalition building, so to give stability. And finally, there is always an issue of cooperation, cooperatives, of mutual help and projects. And so you find always, if you study this kind of innovation, you find these three ingredients. It doesn't work with one only. I think coalition building, so learn from other groups and work together with them. Inclusive representation, so overcoming dualism in the sense of in collective agreements or in employment rights and membership, reach out to the informal sector and to self-employed people and platform workers. This often requires an overhaul of trade union statutes and of the law. And my proposal would be to engage all newcomers in the labor markets with voting rights. Maybe this can be based on support from governments of the taxation system, but make it easier for young people to not only join, but also to express their wishes and their choices. Okay, it would be great if trade unions had a figure like this woman who was so important in the international climate movement, who was always on television. So to have figures in the trade union movement and issues that speak to a wider public, that's my final comment. Now, if you think which of these scenarios is most likely, that's difficult to say. It depends on the trade unions themselves. If one doesn't do the default, so to speak, not doing anything, would lead to marginalization or to other groups taking over, substitution, or to increasing dualization of your labor markets. So doing something would necessarily go in the direction of revitalization. Would mean that you may not immediately be successful. This morning I heard Anna Biondi saying we need, of course, to study good practice. So where have the unions been successful, we can learn. But we also need to look at not so good practice in the sense of where did it not work, where did we fail. So indeed, revitalization is, well, the most important thing is the spirit that you want to go that direction. And the second most important is that you are able to learn from experiments and do not stay with the same strategy if it doesn't work. I think that's all that I have to contribute at this morning session, and I'm very glad that you invited me, and I'm also very present if you have questions to me. I would be very pleased. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Weiser. I think you have done justice to this topic. You have taken us through the 4 possible scenarios: marginalization, dualization, substitution, and revitalization. Indeed, you have been able to dwell on all these 4 scenarios. And importantly, is for trade unions to recognize and work to speed in ensuring that they decisively deal with the challenges at hand. The challenges, like you said, are not new. They have been with us for ages. In the context of Africa engaged in the program, that was the beginning of what we can call drastic decline in the trade union membership. And since that time, again, with the advent of technology, that has also put forward added challenges to trade in terms of membership and as well as in terms of relevance. But like you said, we cannot afford to go in all the directions. What is best for us, like you said, is revitalize and to renourish the trade union movement, make it more attractive to the unorganized, including the young workers, those in the informal economy, the migrant workers, for the doors to be open to all. Let it be an inclusive environment that takes into consideration the importance of ensuring all are together. Dualism cannot help. We cannot afford a situation of having a parallel labor market where one sector is protected, the other is unprotected. That is precisely the scenario in which we are in now today. The bulk of the working people, those in the informal economy. In the context of Africa, we are talking about between 70% to 90% of the labor force in that bracket. Yet, trade union presence in the informal economy is very minimal. We need to change that equation. And like you said, I mean, in terms of services that we can provide, we have to think broadly, not only to limit ourselves to the basic issue of just collective bargaining, but also attend to broader issues that can even make the union more visible and more attractive to others. So I think I do not want to go beyond that. At this point in time, I would like to invite our 2 discussants, starting with Professor Chawel Kalusopa. He is a veteran trade unionist. He has worked also in the field of academia like Professor Weiser, and he is at the moment also a founder and also a member of the African Labor Research Network based in Zambia, Lusaka in particular. So if you are with us online, Professor Chawel Kalusopa, I would like to give you the floor to give your own perspective. You have done some research also in this area, not only to look at it in the context of, a layman's point of view, but also to bring out some of the critical evidences that you may have also come across in the context of Africa, or more in the context of East Africa, because you have been working very closely with ITUC in particular. I'm fully aware of that. So the floor is yours. We give you up to 7 minutes to intervene.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Kabu. Nice to see you. Because I don't have much of the time and luxury to go into many things, first, I want just to say what Professor Wiese presents confirms the compendium of research that we've done for over a long period of time in Africa and more specifically in East Africa. It confirms our research from, I think, way back 2002 up to the latest reports that we took on a broader comparative analysis with ITUC Africa in 2013. But I think the major issue, perhaps, is that the evidence exists. The evidence exists. But the point is the incongruency or the disconnect of how trade unions view the challenges and how they have responded. So if you do a systematic review of all the reports we've done, that seems to be the challenge. Because it is clear the trade unions agree and realize the key challenges that they have faced for a long time. Challenges that relate to the poor governance characterized by their unions and lack of democracy, the limited representation and participation, their weak administrative structures, some of the non-functioning structures, the weak accountability and transparency mechanism, and investment in organizing, and the decline in the membership that Professor Visa has indicated. But the incongruence has been to what the members want in terms of renewal. The members have been asking for more commitment. They've been asking for strengthening of the rank and file networks, that democracy must grow from below and must be participative. Our research has also shown that there is debate and consensus that the identity building and solidarity has been weak, and that the organic nature of trade unions in responding to the challenges has been weak. But what we see over the period of time is inertia from the trade unions, and what we have called in some of our studies strategic confusion. Strategic confusion because you see some trade unions, or most of them, across the African continent and in East Africa particularly, where there has been undermined trade union consciousness and where we have seen their organizational forms dismantled. Meaning that there is no framing glue to deal with a clear strategic approach that the trade unions have taken. And why do we say so? Our evidence points to this, that there were attempts earlier on, for example, in Africa and East Africa and many other parts comparatively, to talk about education that built a conscious trade union movement. This has withered, and you cannot revitalize if you do not have a strategic approach to dealing with consciousness of a group of people that would want to liberate themselves against the onslaught of the serious global capitalist production system, which keeps on mutating and which has changed the nature of work, which Professor Visa has referred to. The evidence also shows the lack of clarity in refining the organizational strategy. There has been half-hearted approaches, for example, to deal with the informal economy. Our research in 2015 shows dotted examples. For example, in East Africa, TWICO, we've seen issues in COTU and others, trying and attempting to work to organize the informal economy. But this has not been sustained. In most of the cases, there has been a clash of organizational confusion. And this has led to a situation where the membership, the capturing of the informal economy, which is almost, if you went to Tanzania, 80%, you see it if you entered Nairobi, you see the Juakari, you see the informal economy, you feel it. The capture of that has been dismal. The other is the young workers. The refining how to deal with the young workers within the structure has been slow. Some of our research shows an outdated form, if you look at the age groups of people still making representation in most of our structures, it has not been renewed with young membership. But young membership need to be nurtured with education, with ideological consciousness within the structures. This has not worked. Evidence also points with the lethargy to deal with research that links action and the centrality of knowledge and information in driving revitalization. We have produced reports several times of even alternative and modes of how this would happen as researchers. The link to actualization of this has been completely dismal and weak. We have, for example, shown how we could link up in new collaborative efforts and partnerships. This has remained dismal. The other is the adoption of newer methods within the new conception of the future of work. And it is becoming more evident with the impact of COVID. Our research has shown the minimalist kind of approach in dealing with adopting information communication technologies in organizing, in collective bargaining, in any of the structural reforms that the trade unions want to carry out. So this is undermined by the poor uptake of most of the unions and the poor infrastructure capability of most of them. I mean, if you went to any trade union within East Africa and you checked their uptake in terms of the technology capabilities, it's weak. I spent time dealing with the issue of how to create labor market information systems. We did a critical analysis of all the countries to if we could develop a labor market information system that should be able to feed trade unions in their strategic planning purposes. One of the constraints that we faced going forward and which we found was just the technological and infrastructure capability, basic capability where unions can't even keep basic records of membership. If you asked any trade unions within Africa and ask them that, what is your density? How many members do you have in this sector versus this sector? You spend the whole day doing that. That is a challenge. So that deepening challenge is linked to also the issue of the adoption of newer communicative methods with how the unions link to their members. The members on the ground, first, the structures in terms of shop stewards is almost non-existent. So there is the disconnect okay, between the leaders and the people on the ground, because there has been no capabilities of instituting communicative approaches to be able to link with workers from below. And that is why you find we have challenges in dealing even with mobilizing the workers. So just to end, therefore, that we need to take reform seriously. And if you take on a scale of which Professor Visa has put, we're moving more to being completely marginalized or even substituted. Look at examples in most of the cases in East Africa itself. You find that there are more NGOs that are which workers who are casualized, who are informal, find attractive to work with. They find it more attractive to be represented by people within the legal kind of field. They find why? Because they are helpless. Workers from below in plantations, in agriculture, in informal economy, in tourism, are totally disconnected from the mode that the unions are indicated. This is a book that we've just published, The Labor Question in the Global South. In this book, with my friend Pravin and Walter Chimbati from Chambati. Pravin is in India, Chambati is in Zimbabwe. We analyze and indicating that in the South that you find this challenge. And if you are not careful, what Professor Visa is saying will be a reality. Will be completely marginalized, will be completely substituted. And it therefore means that we need a leadership now and more than before, a leadership that is conscious enough to bring a strategic glue to this renewal. The current leadership that we have in most of the African trade unions has remained on old fictitious ideological orientations. They've collaborated with either capital, they've collaborated or have been moved into a diminishing mode. They're almost non-existent in certain countries. You are lucky to find some vibrance here, pockets here in Kenya and the rest, but it's almost diminishing. So we need a leadership that is conscious to understand the markets, to understand society, to understand mobilization, and to understand the whole context of revitalization. Otherwise, Chair, we will move to marginalization. And I want to thank Professor Visa for ably, and I've read the whole of that documentation, he ably puts it very well. And it's a clarion call. I'm just trying to emphasize and agree with him that it's a clarion call, but there is too much inertia within our structures. I end up there, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Kabu. I'm done with my intervention. Thank you. I'm done with my intervention.
Brother Kabu, are you there? Oh yeah, I see him, but he doesn't have a microphone. Okay, meanwhile, let me get the ball rolling while we are waiting for Brother Kabu to be reconnected. I think both presentations by Professor Yele. Okay, are you back? Kabu? Okay, so these are the future scenarios that our researchers have presented to us. And it is clear that renewal, revitalization is required so that we can address some of the challenges that we've been talking about since the beginning. We want to give you an opportunity to give us your initial reflections on the 4 scenarios that Professor Yelevisa has presented, including the issues that have been raised by Professor Kalusopa. But before that, we also want to get another perspective from the sub-region. And I'm sure, Caroline, you are ready with this last part of the presentations while participants are reflecting on the issues that they would want to raise.
Yeah, yes, Inviolata.
Over to you.
Thank you very much, Inviolata. And I deliberately let the professor go ahead of me. I would actually say I totally agree. He has summarized, or he's put forward some of the issues that I was going to raise. So I'll make my interventions very specific to East Africa. I think one of the issues that Prof has mentioned is over and over again, and Tyrell has mentioned even during the opening remarks, has been the issue of membership. And if I just take a quick membership comparative analysis of our sub-region, and I'm speaking particularly on ITUC, there has been, in the recent past, up to before Corona, we have not done a membership analysis after Corona or during Corona, there has been a steady growth in membership, particularly for East Africa. And some countries like Uganda have experienced up to 200% in growth of their membership. We have Burundi that experienced up to 103% of growth in its membership. But when you look at this growth that we have been experiencing in the region, apart from Kenya and Rwanda, a majority of the increase, particularly for Uganda and Burundi, has been through organizing in the informal economy. So this already is, there's some kind of efforts towards revitalization. But this increase has not necessarily translated to increase in financial resources. I remember one of our able governing body member, Dr. Tuoli, mentioned issues of financial sustainability. So we have experienced the growth, but this growth is not being translated to financial resources. And we clearly heard that if we are talking about revitalization, financial sustainability is key in revitalization for the trade union. But also, if I just look around quickly in terms of the range of projects and programs and activities that are implemented by our affiliates, they have not been consistent in terms of the implementation. You know, when you look at recognition campaigns, shop stewards trainings, and even internal development of many of our affiliates, they often rely on cooperating partners. You cannot compare, you know, the vibrant education departments that we had before in the 90s and currently. Most of our activities and programs rely mostly on cooperating partners. So therefore, it raises the issue of lack of resourcing and the problems of organizational memories within most of our unions that have been affected by the resource base of many unions, whereby we are not only talking about financial resources, but we are also talking about the intellectual resources on the principles and values of the movement. And this is in the kind of leadership we have, whether it's within the kind of diversity of representation that our unions reflect. And Prof, well, I would say three of the scenarios are very common in East Africa, and that is marginalization, substitution, and revitalization. And in terms of moving forward to revitalization, at the confederational level, through ETUC, there has been a strong coordination and cooperation among affiliates in terms of making the trade union relevant to current trends, to issues of integration, to what is happening in the global world. And the national centers have done really well in playing a coordinated, role, particularly in policy formulation and engagement of partner states on behalf of their affiliates. However, one of the challenges that we are seeing from at the regional level has been coordination between sector unions, which has tremendously reduced unless facilitated through the GAFs. We have a very strong presence of the GAFs coordinating their affiliates, but the GAFs talking to GAFs and also the National Center coordination or working with the GAFs, there has been a reduction in that regard. So we are instead seeing further fragmentation and breakaway unions at the sector level. Just the current information in Tanzania, we currently have 33 unions. So you see there's fragmentation, and yet we are talking about revitalization, and we know the foundation of trade unionism is unity in numbers. So we cannot be talking about trade union unity when we have fragmentation every day. There's also the other issue is also the lack of support of organizational networks that tie trade union representative on the ground across different work within and between sector. This is a follow-up to the issue around the GAFs coordination and working, across the different workplaces. Dr. Akoth talked about politics, and politics has played a major role in either marginalization or substitution of trade unions or slowing down the revitalization of trade unions in terms of weakening the unions through fragmentation or range of legislation that is restricting collective action and influencing internal trade affairs. Which represent some of the strongest anti-union legislation. We've seen pockets of these legislations across the region. Legislation aimed at making it difficult, to develop, such issues as strike action in any workplace. So when you look at marginalization and look at issues around informal economy, they have talked about 60% of the East African workforce is in the informal economy. So it definitely holds a key to union relevance and in the future. So it's very important for us to look at the issue. The issue of trade and investment agreements within the community and at country level. We've had engagements such as agreement on we've worked with ITUC and COTU that has developed a position on the US-Kenya FTA, involvement in the negotiation of the East African Common Market Protocol and the re-establishment of the treaty. These are just some of the examples that the Union is doing to ensure we are not marginalized. The issue, and another issue that is a challenge in the region is the issue around youth bulge. Is it a ticking bomb or is it an opportunity? And I'm saying this because East Africa has one of the most useful regions, with Uganda being among the top 3 youthful countries in the world. So organizing young workers is future to keeping the unions relevant and not marginalized. So when I look at the four scenarios that Professor has mentioned, I would say the region is working mostly towards revitalization. In terms of diversity in union membership, we are seeing more organizing of informal economy and embracing informal economy. We membership. They still need to be work around organizing young workers, and also the issue around trade union solidarity actions in terms of moving forward. So I will beg to submit my comments here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for those supplementary views from the sub-regional perspective, how you see East Africa and the Horn of Africa within the context of the 4 scenarios flagged by Professor Yelevisa. Let's discuss, colleagues and comrades, what are your reflections? Do you agree with Professor Trywell that we are substituted, marginalized, but more revitalized? These scenarios are something that you have already been reflecting on in your own organizations, and what is working where. I see the hand of our brother Yazidi from Uganda. Let me see who else would want to take the floor so that we open one round of comments or questions. But I also want to take the advantage and presence of our director from the ILO Dar es Salaam office, Brother Wellington. Be on standby to give us your parting shot on the topic that we are discussing. You know how far you have come. As you are sitting in the meeting, you are looking at us from the inside outside. You were once inside the movement, but now as an ILO director, you are looking at us from the outside. So I would also need your reflections in 2 minutes. But before you come in, Brother Wellington Chibebe, Yazidi, you have your 1 minute, followed by Abraham. I'm going through my screen to see whether I don't miss anyone, so that when we close this round, I'll give the floor again back to Professor Visa and to Brother Kalusopa to also give us their parting reflections. Yazid, 1 minute.
Okay, thank you very much for the good topic. I saw that for the sound, there was a big person. My issue is in line with Dr. Kalusopa's presentation, where I noted, and from also Sister Kamat, where there is a big membership increment, but no increment in the income. The issue is we have been with the formal arrangement of organizing, and the people have been doing direct check-off. But the informal economy is very hard to check off because these are the people who are earning daily. So for me, my view is is it proper or to come up with an informal economy way of collecting the membership fees? Because it is just the problem, we cannot collect the money from that membership. Then in the last minutes, I want to talk about the politics. My sister talked about the politics, but for me, out of my small surveys I have been taking, we have politics within the union and the national politics. So the trade unions are being affected by the two sets of politics, the internal politics and the national politics. You find that our leaders in the trade union are doing their internal politics, which is limiting a membership growth. Some leaders, they don't want to see new younger leaders coming up. Once they discover this is verbative, they say, no, let us first keep that one aside. You find that you will get good people coming, but because of internal politics, those people will be stopped from participating in the trade union business. So you find that we have to, as we are fighting the national politics, let us first also work at the internal politics which within our union is. Let me first stop there because I was given 1 minute, so I had other points to talk about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yazid. Your other points, you can put them in the chat. Our presenters will be checking out for those ones. Abraham, over to you, your 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I fully agree on revitalization to be the best fit from the possible for scenarios provided on the discussion form. But my question lies to the previous speakers. Who or what should we reform to revitalize trade union in East Africa? I mean, is it the system or the structure that is running the trade union movement in East African countries is failing, or the people within the trade union movements are not doing enough? I want to have a clear picture on these two key ideas. Is it the system or the people within the system are failing? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Abraham, for being very specific. In the chat, I also see a comment where somebody is agreeing with Professor Kalusopa that there is need for leadership renewal. Can the panelists also kindly guide us? Does leadership renewal only entail replacing the older unionists with the younger, or it's a combination of many things? I see this comment in the chat. Brother Chibebe, Director, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Where do you see these scenarios very well placed? You are looking now from the outside, but you have been inside.
Of course, from being a stone thrower to a peacemaker, I lived in the two worlds. Of course, I had the presentations very well researched, very well articulated, and to the point. But I think there were issues that also needed to be amplified, particularly to acknowledge where success in detail would have been met, so that other colleagues would learn. Let me take, for example, the issue of TWICO here in Tanzania. Of course, they are organizing in the informal sector, but one area that I would want to highlight is support of the ILO, TWICO's leadership renewal or gender integration process has reached 44% in all the structures. They are aiming for 50-50, and that is practical. The issue of the informal economy is a topical issue and a thorny issue. in the sense that you are organizing individuals and you are not organizing people in one roof. And therefore, the organizing strategies have to actually be sharpened. We don't organize just for the sake of organizing, because we may actually organize and disorganize ourselves. I think for those who have been in business, they know that if you are not sure of running your business, please don't start your business, because you market and get customers, but service delivery becomes erratic and you may lose even those who were inside the net. So I think one area that also needs to be targeted is the issue of capacity, but capacity in what areas? My take and my experience is that I think there is need for capacity building, not only in leadership, acumenship, but trade union administration. I think that's one of the areas that has been quite lacking for over the years. Unions that are well administered and that are delivering service to the members are generally stable. So I think, in my view, this is what I observe. I had a talk with Sister Caroline when we visited her office, and I would want to emphasize on that, of course, we may sharpen the trade unions in terms of organizing, in terms of education, but if our administration is weak, we may find that we organize to disorganize ourselves. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brother Chibebe. I think our presenters, Professor Kalusopa, Professor Yelevisa, listened very well to your comments. And thank you for sharing the TUICO revitalization model. I will take 3 last hands. I see Brother Follow, you have 1 minute, followed by our Deputy DGS, Brother Eric Manzi. You also have 1 minute. And lastly, we have Brother Yusuf Ali, in that order, 1 minute each. Then at the end of their 1 minute, before I invite the presenters for this session again to give us their last comments, Sister Alice Siame Gondwe, if you are still around with us, we also want to hear your views as a key solidarity support organization that has been working with us in Africa, particularly in East Africa, on some of the topics that have been flagged out in this discussion, on in the informal economy, on gender mainstreaming, integration of youth, and many others. What is your takeaway from the scenarios that have emerged from this discussion? So at the end of after the 3 speakers that have their hands up, Madam Alice Siame, it will also be good to hear from you. So Brother Follow, over to you, 1 minute.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, but I don't finish in 1 minute because I came from an unstable region. So anyway, let me make sure. I agree on the presentation of our colleague. In some countries, it is difficult to unionize the informal sector. For example, in Ethiopia, they excluded the informal sector from unionization or from the labor law. So it is difficult now. If you are unionize them, they cannot get a legal entity. That is the one problem. I don't know how can they see our presenters this issue, or if someone has experience on this issue, they can share for us. Regarding the organizing the other sector, as a country, we have organizing strategy. Also, we organized more than 15,000 workers within past 10 months in Ethiopia. But our problem is, you heard that the region is an unstable region, internal and external conflict, leave alone to organize other workers. It is difficult to sustain the former members. So for us, also the internal interference of the government or politics in the trade union activities. Look at in Sudan, now they dissolve the union, the former union. Also they ban the travel for the trade union leaders. Also in Ethiopia, a lot of internal conflict, also external conflict, Sudan with Ethiopia. The conflict, the Nile Basin conflict is also another issue. These all issues are affecting our internal affairs. Even region, it is rely on ethnicity politics. So it is difficult even to manage. We fear that if this ethnicity issue is entered to the affair of the union, it is difficult for us to manage. But until now, we are safe. But the conflict is here in the desert. It is difficult even to organize their workers in the countryside. So, but our membership is increased. Not only in Ethiopia, in Somalia, in Eritrea, our membership is increased a little bit. But I cannot finish with this short time the issue of Horn of Africa, but you can read from media, from news, what is happening every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Follow. Brother Manzi, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like just to intervene tomorrow because I have some intervention tomorrow, but I would like just preferably to react about what Professor Visa and Kalusopa presented in terms of the different scenario. In my opinion, I think, okay, I respect the opinion of our colleagues, our comrades, academicians, researchers, etc., especially Kalusopa, because we are working very closely with him. Yes, it's very easy, to sit in your office, in your laboratory, to check the books, to make some research about the trade movement and provide some findings. It's very easy, but the reality, if you work in trading movement, in trade movement, there is many challenges, and the reality is very complicated. As my colleagues, my comrade Follow said, that's me, in my opinion, where we can work only on the scenario of revitalization, because the revitalization is part of the life cycle of the trade movement. If you analyze since many decades, and in maybe since the century, the trade movement had at many times the time sometimes to sit and to reflect, to think about the future. That's because the context change every time. And I think it's good. We take note about the research, the finding of the research. It's a good findings, and maybe we will work on it. But because I think it's not dramatic, it's not dramatic situation, it's normal the situation, because as you know, the trade movement is always resilient. And if you analyze since many years, the trade movement resists on different change of context, the colonization, some revolution, the apartheid, the genocide, the wars, etc. The trade movement is still there because the trade movement has some we have the capacity and ability at some times to stop and to reflect, to think about our future. So it's a very, very interesting discussion. We appreciate it. And as ITUC Africa, I think with our affiliates, we work on it, but it's a very good, we received the good advisor, and maybe we continue that discussion with other trade unionists here. And thank you very much. That is my first point. For the rest, maybe we'll have the opportunity to discuss tomorrow in our panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Manzi. Brother Yusuf Ali, 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Mr. Kabu, and thank you to Professor Weiser. I agree with this fourth scenario, but it is different challenges from the trade unions to another. I think also the more challenges is the behavior of the government. Here in Sudan, we have the government, the rising government of Sudan dissolved the trade unions, and as Mr. Follow said, and thanks to Mr. Follow, the trade unions close the doors for social dialogue. All the national, regional, and global trade unions, ITUC Global, ITUC Afro, OWATU, ICATU, HACTU, address the government of Sudan to revise the decision of dissolution, but no response from Sudan government. Now more than 2 years, and there is no trade unions in Sudan, and that affects very much the workers and families, workers and their families in Sudan. I want to have this opportunity to share our problem and explain our challenges to our colleagues here in HACTU and East Africa trade unions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. The issue is in some countries like Sudan, where do we even start to revitalize or to renew in the context of the challenges that have been shared by Brother Yusuf Ali and also corroborated by Brother Kasanu? I have exhausted my list. Madam Alice Siame, 1 minute. I'm aware, Caroline, that we are a bit over time, but since we started a bit late, I want to ensure that we close at least by 20 minutes past 1. I'm sure our light.
It's okay. It's okay. It will still continue.
Okay. So, Madam Alice Siame, what is your take from what we have been discussing since we started the session? Is she still with us? Yes, I can still see her. Sister Alice. I think she might be far away from here. We can give her an opportunity tomorrow. So it has been a very robust discussion. So in closing, I'll give the opportunity to Professor Yelevisa to reflect on some of the issues that have been raised in the discussion, including in the chat. I'm sure you've also been following. Then Professor Kalusopa, you also have your 2 minutes, and Caroline, your 2 minutes. And Caroline, when you take your 2 minutes, you can also take the advantage of closing the meeting and giving us the roadmap for our session for tomorrow. This is day 1 of 3 days. So over to you, Professor Yelevisa.
Thank you. I'm very pleased with the comments, with the discussion, the livelihood of the liveliness of the discussion. I think it is very good start to continue on this. And of course, my presentation was only a sketch that needs to be filled out with much more detail. Now, I take away a few points. First of all, unlike one of the discussions, I think from the Mr. Erik Manzi, I think there is urgency. Of course, I agree with him that innovation or revitalization has always been a topic with the trade unions. Any trade union needs to do that. However, I would argue that there is a certain type of urgency, that the decline that has happened, and again, that has mostly happened in the Western world, in the developed countries, but they are important for the international trade union movement, for the resources that that trade union movement has, politically, financially, and resources, also for other countries in programs of cooperation and solidarity. Now, the fact that trade union movements in most of the Western world have lost the young people, that among the young people today, only half is organized compared to one generation ago, is a very bad sign, and in my opinion, requires urgency. Again, I do not know for precise how this situation is in East Africa. I hope it's better. But in East Africa, the problem is, as so many of you have just mentioned, how to get organized the informal sector. Now, I've seen that several trade unions, Burundi was mentioned, Uganda. Yesterday, I saw something also about Uganda that they try to make inroads into the informal sector. That unions put resources there and organize. At the same time, we all know, and it was mentioned in the discussion, that this does not bring in finances. It costs money to organize, and you organize these people, but it is very difficult to collect dues and to put this on a stable basis. Still, it is necessary because, and this comes to my second point, treat your membership as a resource, a strategic resource. This in terms of not only, and not in the first place, finance, but also from an intellectual, from a knowledge point of view. That is to say, they can tell you something about their world, their issues, their situation that has to be translated back into policy, new ideas, new styles of organizing, and so on. But also it creates a broader goodwill, which you can use politically. So, and in this sense, I was struck have often a problem with administration. I remember this from my own research, which I did four decades ago in a number of Western countries, that unions did not know where their members were. And then I always thought, how strange. Any business knows where their consumers are. So why do unions not know where their members are? They should. They should have a good administration system, because this is a resource for them. They should know which way it goes, whether there are new groups, and so on and so forth. So this remains to be an important point that unions should address. My final remark is, yes, revitalization is the scenario that we all would like to adopt. And we also know that is one thing between an analysis by an academic like myself and another point to put it in action. That's true. And so it needs leadership, it needs ideas, it needs people who drive this, etc. But I would think also, if you look at, are we successful or are we not successful, then please look not only in terms of did we grow, that is an important element, sure, but also look at an indicator like, did we become more diverse? Did we become more inclusive? So these kind of indicators has to look back at yourself in the sense of, are we not only trying to revitalize, but are we successful? Look at such indicators at the same time. Did we get more new ideas? Did we also put new people in leadership positions, whether on the top level or in the base. That's very important. So that will be my final remarks. I thank everybody for very helpful comments, and I hope any further development with ideas will be also take account of what you have been saying today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Kalusopa, 2 minutes.
Yes, I just want to add to what Professor Visa has said. And I want to agree with my comrades and Comrade Manzi there, that this is an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process. In fact, this debate has been there, as he has indicated, and I've worked with him on several things. We've brought out this even at ITUs. Right up now, we are looking at the issue of the informal economy. I want to agree with Professor Visa that there needs to be a little more agency because this is reawakening us to something we know, but that we are doing something, but we need to do it with more agency. The truth of the matter is that in some of our analysis, we have used some analysis on the resource power of unions, and that we have agreed that unions have resident resource power, because this is an issue of power, and the issue of power means how do you identify your power within yourself to be able to interact with other stakeholders so that you are able to deliver for your membership and beyond. For example, we've argued that the internal solidarity, the cohesion, the vitality of unions does exist. In fact, there is recognition of trade unions within certain legal framework, but their challenges still remain in terms of shaping a framework, for example, the legitimization within the legal movement in certain kind of cases. But we've also argued that there is a network, there is an embodiment of a network which unions can use, and resources within themselves, the narrative resources. But we need to frame this, that what we are saying is that we must be more adaptable and learning organizations. We must be open to a reawakening that much as we are recognized, our power is recognized, there are other organizations that are moving fast pace in dealing with the same issues. I'll give you the example of organizing the informal economy. We work with an organization called WIGO. Now, if you look at their strategies in terms of research, how they build the resident knowledge, and we're working with them with ITUC, their resident knowledge in terms of how we can use that to dovetail that within our structure. They do a lot of kind of that work, which we think we can collaborate with them to be able to do that. There was a question of whether our structures or is it the leadership. Both the structures and the leadership must be dealt with, all right? It should be deliberate within our structures to bring in the youth, for example. It should also be deliberate that we don't want a leadership that should be able to chiefdom, leadership that perpetuate actually a rivalry and breakaway. We did a study at ITU Africa again on the issue of rivalry in unions like the teachers union, and the question of how we manage resources, because there are certain unions that have resources, but rivalry arises out of the leadership where some leadership wants to use the resources for their personal gain, and then you see a lot of rivalry in that. So a combination of the two, and that the education process must be continuous. I think Comrade Chibebe will attest to you that when some of us were being initiated to this with the big people like themselves, they taught us trade union consciousness, meaning as a leader, what are the values that you must be able to have? That has diminished. It has gone so low, especially in the last years, that you almost don't find any structure dealing with growing from below, the type of things that, for example, the ZCT of Zimbabwe could do, the ZCT of Zambia could do, they're almost not being done of course, we have all these kind of challenges. I just want to end with one point on best practices. Yes, we have best practices. And I think in 2013 up to 15, we did an analysis of the value of the informal economy. We saw that the informal economy has a value, and the social value, economic value, and otherwise, and that it was not going. And that's why I mentioned earlier about TWICO. And we found there are certain cases like TWICO, for example, Ghana TUC, I think Fiona in Nigeria, in Sierra Leone, the case of Zimbabwe, the Chamber of Commerce working, the informal workers, the Institute attempting to work with the informal workers organization. There are challenges there. The issue of Malawi trying to incorporate. So we developed and came up with several models that you can do that. But we need to enhance the pace of that. We need to build on that knowledge, not only to increase membership, but to be able to be more adaptable, to be able to be more forward-looking, to be able to exploit, for example, the question of online education. Online education, attracting the youth using online education, attracting the youth and being more participatory. So I thought that those are some of the points that but I just want to say that this is a debate, but I think we need a little bit of some urgency from the leadership. And that's the knock that we want to do, just to say, hey, something here, let's move quickly. I think that's the idea. Not that the leaders are not doing enough, and we understand the challenges, but we need to have some agency beyond this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nyalusopa. Caroline?
Thank you, Violeta. I think most of the questions have been answered, and I would just like to repeat my statement in terms of intellectual resources on the principle and values of the trade union movement, and Trial has alluded to that also. But also the issue around diversity, not only in our membership and our leadership. So we are not saying that we bring in all young leaders, or we only bring in a certain kind of leader, because the old and the young leader, there is the bridging of the generation gap. And probably this is why we are failing in terms of that intellectual resource on principles and values of the trade union movement that Triwell has spoken about. I would just like to thank everyone at 10, and we promise we will ensure we have no glitch. The virtual conference will be opened at 9:30, so if you need to catch up with anybody, you are welcome in at 9:30, and then we'll kick off at 10 on the dot. Tomorrow we'll be answering some of the questions, particularly what my director had raised in terms of best practices. We'll start with the presentation on revitalization and transformation, emerging best practices from the ACTRAV. And then we'll also be looking at issues around labor research, education, and training. We'll also have our GAFs also give their experiences and what they are doing in terms of revitalization, and also our ABLE Labor Research and Education Institute in Lome will also be looking at the issue. Then we'll have trade union response in time of COVID-19, and our DGS, Manzi, will also be presenting, and our other regional organization, OWATU, Brazanzunda, will be taking the floor. But also there is a special presentation on opportunity for digital solutions. The key presenter talked about moving from analog to digital, so someone will also be handling that. So I just want to thank the interpreters for the wonderful job they have done. Thank you very, very, very much. This would not have been possible without them, and I'm happy to see that most of our Francophone have joined in, and they have they have followed the discussion easily. This seminar is being recorded, so just in case you had any break in communication, any blackout, loss of network, don't worry, we will share the recorded sessions for all the 3 days, and also the presentations. We will share all the presentations. So thank you, merci beaucoup, asante sana. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place.
Yes, Sister Carol, I just managed to come back. I was completely disconnected.
Yes, Kabu.
Yes, I was disconnected. My charge went off.
Yes, sorry.
I came to the telecenter. I'm just recharging now.
You are welcome back, Kabu, but you are just...
Yes, I hope you were able to manage it without me.
Yes, Inviolata took over co-piloting.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much.
See you tomorrow, Kabu.
Okay, thank you.
See you. Okay.
We are having very serious, Inviolata,
yes.
We are having very serious electricity outages. 1 week, no power in my house.
Oh, that's not
so
good.
I came to the telecenter to recharge. I'm doing that now.
Oh, sorry to hear that. I hope tomorrow and over the next days it will be much better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye. Bye.